went right through 2 law degrees, tried to go to medical school. I was telling a former colleague of mine earlier who's in medical school here in Dallas that I tried to get my wife to help put me through a 3rd degree, which would have been medical school, and she had said, Tommy, I have one word for you, divorce. So I didn't go to medical school. It kind of worked out just fine for both of us. So my jobs, in terms of aspirations, have changed quite dramatically over the course of 57 years. Jobs. Dream jobs. There is a point to all this at some point. Teacher? Yoga teacher. Namaste. That was one of my dream jobs too. Do you need money? No. No. Because I actually then had to ask a question. Do I need to have money? The most important thing I can give right now in my life is time. That's a much more important treasure. Interesting question, though. So that's actually one of the questions. Did I need to have money to be a philanthropist? And the answer is categorically, I concluded, no. And in fact, it's much easier to write a check than give of yourself, for sure. And the one thing I know, and I've asked this question now probably more than a few hundred times in audiences big and small. This would be relatively normal sized audience. But with 500 people recently at a Motorola event, happened to be a supply chain conference. I asked the audience the following question. How many of you have used within the last 6 months a phrase to the effect, I would, but I just don't have enough time? Raise your hand. If you haven't. Okay, so that tells me, by the way, one person in all the years I've asked that question, one person said yes. Stunned me. I almost fell over. And by the time I was done talking with him, he acknowledged that, no, he actually had. That means the most precious thing in our lives is time. So to give up time is much more valuable than to give a check. Even if the check is everything you want. Time is much more precious. So just park all those thoughts. Because it's going to relate to what I want you to do later in terms of defining for yourself your star. The star that's going to guide you in terms of living a life of meaning. This group can help you with that, along with other groups, as long as you're disciplined about the process. So women in the workplace. Okay, now for the quant stuff. How many of you are happy about the diversity in your current work environment? Raise your hand if you are. A little bit higher so everybody can see. That's fair satisfaction. Okay, now, in general, in terms of the U.S., are you happy as well with the current state? If you are, raise your hands. So not a single hand. Not even the males have raised their hands. So, then my question, not looking for you to answer it, what are you going to do about your dissatisfaction today? Let me repeat that question. What are you going to do about your dissatisfaction today? Just for fun. Mark Twain once said, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. He went on to say, statistics don't lie, liars statistic. Obviously, for those of us who are quantitatively oriented, not a very flattering picture. But let me try this. We went from 2 to 12. Geez, I could just see the headline now. A 6-fold increase in number of women CEOs. Are you happy with that answer? No, because it belies the fact. On the other hand, if I said we went from 0.4% to 2.4%, knowing what the population of women is in the country, you might actually be upset. But yet, there's the fact. Why aren't we in outrage over that fact? Why aren't you, as women, in outrage over that fact? And what can you do about it starting today? Just for fun, women on board seats. Oh, a 54% increase over a 10-year period. How sweet that is. But guess what? It's really only 14% of the population, or otherwise total available market. 14, 15%. Are you happy with that? No. That's why no one raised their hands. You're not. You're unhappy about it. And you should be. And you should be rightly indignant. So let's go a little further. Officer positions. Oh, it's 15% again. It's up, however, 77%. I'm feeling good as a quant, except I look at the real numbers, the absolute numbers, and the absolute numbers, for those of you who are involved in hedge funds, absolute return is kind of a good concept. Absolutely, we suck. Oh, that's interesting. But here's the interesting news. Flash. Women represent 46% of the population in the workforce. Here's the really interesting news. Women in undergraduate programs in this country now represent 57% of the student population. Graduate programs, 58%. By the way, you're growing for two reasons. Boys are dropping out faster, and you're actually growing in numbers. Absolutely. That's the really good news. Really good news, actually. And I would take heart in that. Back to one of the reasons you're here. Education, networking, awareness. How many of you have actively engaged and are engaging at present, at least one of you are, because they said Reagan, in the political arena? Raise your hand if you are. Okay, so here's my task. Challenge number one. As I have told my children and their friends, and I have a 28-year-old down to 16, and a 16-year-old plays. She's met with presidents, congressmen, senators, governors. She's growing up a lot differently than her dad, who grew up in South Philadelphia in a 1,500 square foot house with 8 people, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and you knew how to take a shower quickly. My comment to them is as follows. I care about who you vote for, but I care more that you vote. Because if you don't, a bunch of old people like me are going to tell you how you need to live your lives. So my prayer for you, since you're young, you're the demographic largely that's not engaged, needs to engage. So step number one about what are you doing about your unhappiness with the current state should be engage in the political process. By the way, there's a little footnote here. Female governors currently 9. Well, there was 12 a few years ago. We're going in the wrong direction. The wrong direction.